Wouldn't be a good excuse 10 feet up.
Hey everyone, today I wanted to do a video talking to you about the new Glock magazines from ETS. Now ETS has been making AR-15 mags for a while now. People seem to like them. They like the kind of translucent smoke coloration to them, and they also like the built-in coupling feature that those AR-15 mags have. Now ETS has just recently started releasing their line of Glock magazines. They're pretty new to the market, so I wanted to take a chance to test a few of them out, see how they run. Not only different sizes of the magazines, but through different Glocks as well. But I'm going to go a little bit more in depth into how I tested them a little bit later. First, I want to talk to you about how these things are constructed. So obviously, as you can see, these are translucent. They are made out of polymer. Now ETS says that the polymer that they use is going to be very resistant to cracking. They're not going to break apart if you drop them. They're not going to be sensitive to going from hot to cold and cracking. So they claim that these things are pretty hefty, and from my experience, I'm inclined to agree. Now I will say, when I first took these out of the packaging, they felt kind of flimsy, they felt kind of light, they didn't seem like they'd be that durable. Seeing that seam running up and down the middle kind of worried me a little bit, but I can say from my experience so far, durability and reliability is not going to be an issue. Now another thing I want to mention as well is you'll notice on these magazines there are no metal feed lips. The only metal in this magazine is that the follower spring. There's no other metal built into this, but so far from my experience that has not been an issue. So what I'm going to go ahead and do is I'm going to break down this magazine here that doesn't have the ammunition in it, show you how the internals look, how it comes apart, how it goes back together, and then I'll talk to you about my experience with these so far. So I'm going to go ahead and push these off to the side. And now, just like typical Glock magazines, they have a very similar looking floor plate with that little tab, retaining tab there in the middle. Now what makes these different is the way that these floor plates actually connect on there. There's more of a taper to it, so it's a lot easier to actually get these off than traditional factory magazines. So basically all you got to do is start that little thing in the middle and then put some pressure going from the back to front. Once it kind of gets past that lip, you can just sit there and basically force it apart. Now it is not going to be easy, like as easy as a Magpul Glock magazine, but it is also easier than a factory magazine. Alright, so I had to take that floor plate off camera just because I couldn't get enough leverage on it doing it out here in front of the camera. But again, I still think it's significantly easier than doing it on the factory magazines. But anyway, so you have this little retaining plate that is not connected to the follower in any way other than that it sits on top of it, or the follower spring. And then the follower spring is not actually mechanically connected to either the follower at the top or this little retaining plate at the bottom. And then in order to get the follower out, usually you just kind of touch on it and it'll drop right out. So this was a little bit different to me. Typically you don't see them come apart this way, but again, so far from my experience, it hasn't affected reliability whatsoever. Now, I have already previously taken this one down just because with some of the testing I did with it, I submersed it in water, got it pretty dirty, so I wanted to go through, make sure it was nice and clean before I use it again. You might even see some scratches on it from some of the testing I was doing, but it cleaned up really easily. I pretty much just wiped everything down. Now because this is the only metal component, one of the reasons I did break it down was just to make sure this was nice and dry so I didn't have to worry about any corrosion. But now that I got this apart, I'm going to go ahead and throw this thing back together, show you how that works. So in order to get this thing back together, what I'm going to do is just sit the follower right on top of that spring. If I can, again, working behind a camera isn't the easiest thing in the world. So once I kind of get it balanced on there, I'm just going to insert that into the body of the magazine. As you can see, it comes through the top there. Then I'm going to take this retaining plate, making sure that that big locking tab in the front is at the front. So I'm going to push down, forcing that spring back in there, and then I'm just going to take the floor plate, slide it from the front to back this time, and then once you get it started, it's pretty much easy to get it all the way. Again, you can see that locking tab. Well, I don't know how well you can see it, but it's a little bit more tapered in the front, so really all you got to do is just kind of force it back on there. And once I kind of get it finagled back in there, as you can see, it's seated right back in its original position. So while these definitely are not as easy to take apart and put back together as the Magpul Glock mags, it is, in my opinion, again, significantly easier than the factory Glock magazines. Now, as you can see here, I have the 15-round version, the 17-round version, a 22-round version, and then the 31-round version. Now, the one that kind of caught me by surprise was the 22-round version. Typically, the 22-round magazines are going to be for 40 caliber Glocks, but in this case, my understanding, the reasoning behind the 22-round magazine was because it's geared towards competitive shooters where they might have a magazine capacity limit, and I guess 22 fits under that in certain circumstances. So if that's something you're looking for, this is a good way to look. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and talk to you about my experience with these. Now, currently I have about 250 rounds, maybe a little bit more than that, through these magazines, and I used them on a Glock 19, a Glock 26, and a Glock 22 that had a 9mm conversion barrel. As you'll be able to see, they all locked in just fine, and every single one of them functioned flawlessly. Now, the 119 magazine here is the only one that actually belongs to me. All the rest of them are on loan from a friend of mine. So this is the only one that I quote-unquote tortured. Even then, I don't think I did too much crazy stuff to it. One of the first things I did was I found a little puddle because it was rainy today, and submersed it in water, got a little bit of the silt kicked up in it to try to get some, definitely get water in it, but try to get some silt inside the body of the magazine as well. As you'll be able to see, there was kind of a layer of silt on top of this once everything settled, and even when I inserted it into the gun, it still had water dripping out of it. So I put it in my Glock 19, and it functioned flawlessly. Everything ran just fine. So, not satisfied with that, I decided to, again, fully load one of these magazines, and then I dropped it bullet first onto the ground. Now, because it doesn't have the metal feed lips, I fully expected it to start shedding rounds for them to start popping out, but that did not happen in this case. But I did get some mud in and around the top there, as again you will probably see in the footage. And when I inserted it, I guess some of that mud got in the way enough to prevent me from actually fully seating it in the gun. So you'll see that attempt to fire didn't work, and I did a tap, rack, and assess, and it worked just fine. So I don't attribute that malfunction to the magazine itself. I think even with a factory magazine or any other magazine, having that much dirt build up on top of it would have prevented the proper function. So again, I don't want to attribute that to this magazine particularly. Now, one of the things that I wanted to do, especially with these higher capacity magazines, was I try to dump these magazines as fast as I could while still putting rounds on our steel plate out there. I wanted to try to see if I could outpace that follower to see if I could get any sort of feeding issues, and I was unable to do so. It fed 100% reliably every single time, and through both the Glock 19, Glock 26, and Glock 22 with that 9mm conversion. So I've been very, very satisfied with the way that these actually performed. The only one that they make that I don't currently have is the Glock 26 style magazine, which is going to be your 10-round magazine. And then also they do make a California legal 10-round magazine for like the Glock 19 style mags. But being that I live in a free state, I don't have to worry about that, so I'm not going to buy one of those 10-round magazines. I apologize. I'm just going to go with the standard capacity magazine. That aside, most people who know me or are around me very much know that I'm not a huge fan of aftermarket magazines when it comes to handguns specifically, especially when it comes to Glocks. In previous years, really the only alternative to a factory Glock magazine have been those Korean magazines, and those have been really, really hit or miss as far as reliability, typically miss. So I've always stuck to Glock factory magazines. However, in the recent months, with both Magpul coming out with Glock magazines and now ETS with their Glock magazines, I've had 100% function in both the Glock magazines made by Magpul and then now these ETS magazines. Now, I'm still of the opinion that if I'm going to carry a magazine for personal protection, whether that be in my gun or as a backup magazine, it's going to be a factory mag, just because I know for a fact those are going to work every single time. However, when it comes to training or practice or anything else like that, I think these are a great resource. And then me personally, as a instructor for like concealed handgun licensing classes, I just think it's really cool to have a translucent double stack magazine. A lot of times we try to explain the difference between a single stack and a double stack. So in order to be able to actually visually show this to people is kind of cool, and to see how that stacking actually works and how it feeds up into there really kind of gives that light bulb in people's minds a lot more, in my experience so far. So as far as pricing goes, you know, this is as of December 2015. You can currently pick up the 31 round magazines direct from ETS for $21.99 a piece, going all the way down to the Glock 19 magazine, which is going to run approximately $16.99. Now that's direct from ETS. You might be able to find it cheaper elsewhere if you can find them, because again, these are pretty new, so I don't know what the stock is going to be on these. But either way, it's going to be significantly cheaper than your factory magazines. So again, if you're looking for something for training, this is a really good direction to look. I'll go ahead and put a link to the website in the description below, just so you can go see for yourself what the availability is, as well as what the current pricing is going to be. So if you've had any experience with these magazines, please leave those in the comments below. I know these are still pretty new, so as much feedback as we can possibly get is going to be a good thing. Thankfully, I was able to test a few of them through different guns as well, so it's not like I just have a sample of one or through one gun. I have a sample of 4 here through 3 different guns with 100% functionality. But again, if you've had a different experience, please let us know. If you have any questions or recommendations of other magazines, again, please throw those in the comments below. I'll try to get back to you as quick as I can. But as always, I hope you were able to get something out of this video, and I appreciate you watching.
Drax and Guardians of the Galaxy, big guy.
Is that the same guy?
Yeah, same
No
guy. Yeah.